Sweet, sweet. Yeah, Trevor, thanks for coming on the Travis Goodwin Show, man. I've been watching you on social media close deals for a while. I'm very aware of who you are and what you do, but for those who may not know, let's just start with an introduction.
Okay. I grew up on a cattle ranch northeast of San Angelo, Texas, which is western Texas, and went to school at Texas Tech, things like this. But my dad, uncle, and granddad, I'm a fifth generation rancher, but you don't make any money as a primary producer of livestock anymore, right? The real value of land, especially in Texas, but almost anywhere is recreational or residential usage. So anyway, we've had a decoupling of the price of land for raising cattle and sheep and goats compared to going hunting, right? Like let's not kid ourselves, right? That happened a long time ago. And so in 1991, my dad, uncle, and granddad and a couple other guys bought 15,000 acres and did what we call simple subdivides, right? So everybody that you've heard about, and maybe I shouldn't have even have said anything back in the day, it was several years ago, but like the whole subdivide deal and things like that, that obviously it's been around for a long time. So way land kind of got split up and separated and things like that, but they've done that for a long time. And since 2020, me and a couple, two or three different partners, we've done a little over 11, 10 or 11,000 acres ourselves.
Oh, that's
So
awesome, man.
I
Okay.
guess. I mean, it's just it's funny when you're into it. You don't really think about the numbers until you look back. You're like, oh, okay, we've done quite a bit. So
Yeah, that's really cool. So you guys are focusing on land only, right? No houses.
I have done houses. I fell through a roof one time on a shitty house that we were doing an inspection on. Literally, my right leg went through the damn roof.
Damn.
I've flipped some houses. I remember back in the day. I remember I didn't know what the hell happened. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. This is when bandit signs, like 2009, 10, right? Like back in the day, I was putting out bandit signs at like 2 o'clock in the morning in my wife's little rinky-dink hatchback car. And all of a sudden, I felt something like stab me in the back of the leg. And it's in the summertime in Texas, it's super hot. I was like, did I just get hit by a rattlesnake or what the hell? I turn around and there's a freaking rooster that was like attacking my back legs, like as I was putting out a freaking bandit sign, right? So I've flipped some houses, I've done some creative stuff, things like that, but I just land and dirt is really what I enjoy, right? I grew up in the middle of nowhere, running around with the dog and a BB gun or a 22 or riding horses and stuff like that. So I like doing that better. And here's another thing: where I'm at, it's an MSA of about 100,000 people, and there's just not that much inventory, right? Like it just there's not that many people here in
Yeah,
order to do the kind of leverage and the kind of stuff that I want to do.
I get that. I'm in a small place too up here in West Virginia. I'm in Charleston. We have like 50,000 people here, in the
Yep.
capital. So I get it. Um,
Yep.
so when it comes to the land, man, I'm assuming are you all over Texas?
I've done stuff all over the country, but
Okay.
usually Texas, Oklahoma, uh, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado are the ones that I've done the vast majority of my stuff. Yeah.
Nice. And
Yep.
do you try to go out to the land as much as possible? I mean, sometimes you can't, right?
Yeah, man, it just depends on what you're doing. Like, because there's nothing wrong, and here's a great lesson for anybody listening, right? Like, you want to talk about value add, you want to talk about minor subdivisions, major subdivisions, horizontal, all the value add stuff, things like this. The greatest opportunity, Travis, and I need to really work on it is I really want to buy a bunch of stuff again, sending letters, right, and buying stuff 50, 60 cents on the dollar and offering owner financing on it. It's
Yeah.
still the best opportunity in real estate. I don't give a shit what anybody says, right? As far as ease of use, ease of lack of headache, all the stuff like this, like like if I had $10 million in my pocket right now, I'd buy every piece of 35 to 40 acre tracts in northern Arizona and southeast Colorado, and I'd owner finance all of them, and y'all never see me again,
Yeah, that's all. You get that cash
right?
flow every month, no tenants. Yeah.
100%. And if they default, I get to sell it again. It's the best freaking model there is. But it's slow for what a lot of people want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where the value add, that's where the opportunities come from on my side. So Our bread and butter is rural subdivision, right? We're gonna cut something, 130 acres, cut them into 10-acre tracts or 20-acre tracts. Keep ag exemption on them, right? Tax ag exemption on them, keep taxes low. These are stuff out in the county. They're not inside city limits or anything else like that. And then what we do is we use a capital stack where we've got regional banks that will finance up to 80% of the cost. We come up with 20% of the equity plus usually a year of payments and improvement costs. And then what we do is we make those improvements, usually anywhere from 90 to 120 days, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, just depending on the county. And then put those on the market. And as they sell, we pay the bank first. And then as everything comes back, then we distribute. We make distributions based on percentages of the LLC that we own. There's
Nice.
there's my business.
So when you say that you put it on the market, are you saying with a realtor, or you?
Yes, sir. Yep. And right now we don't have banks that allow us to wrap, which is something that I'm trying to find out. Again, the cost of capital is so high, especially with raw land, right? If you want to buy a $200,000 property, you're going to put 20, 30, 40% down, plus you're going to pay an extra 2 points when it comes to over whatever you're going to pay for. Most of the time you're going to pay 7, 8, 8.5, 9% interest rates right now,
Yeah.
right? And so that's been the hard part with 2024 and start of 2025. We've got some really good products. It's not moving as well as we'd like it to because we can't offer the owner financing the way we've currently set it up.
I understand that. Yeah, that makes total sense. So it sounds like, in the future, that's really what you want to do. You definitely want to get into the holding those notes and getting that cash flow every month.
Not only the cash flow, but your enterprise value that you can take, right? And that's the nice thing about this, guys, is you can actually use that note, like that note portfolio. A note is a liability, right? Like if you look at it as a bank, because if one person defaults or things like this, it's not that big a deal. But if you have 10, 15, 20 notes that you can package together, now you have a business,
Yeah.
right? That's then you can have lending power against that because now it's considered diversified, right? Now you have enough deals. If 20% of the people do not pay you every month and it takes you a while to resell it or one way or other, you can still, that's still in some people's eyes, a bankable asset, right? And now you can take that and use that as your, it's not just a cash flow deal, but in certain areas, I've got certain banks around here. I've got that they're like, hey, I'll lend you up to 80% of what your value is, right? And so if you buy it at 50 cents on the dollar, you can actually pull money out, which is tax free because that's debt, right? You can actually pull money out of that thing, make some money, plus still keep some of the cash flow. So there's lots of value there. It's just a lot of people have no idea what they're talking about, and a lot of the land gurus don't talk about the higher level stuff.
Yeah. It seems like, a lot of the coaches that teach about land, it's more so, let's just get these little lots, these
Yep.
infill lots and sell them, right?
Yep. Well, and there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
right? The thing is, here's the hard part, right? And this is where you're going to see that. Crappy lots are hard to sell.
Yeah.
The returns are great because you can get a percentage rate of return on a $5,000 lot that you're selling for 15, right? Is a wonderful percentage. You're making 300% on your money, but you're only going to make $112 a month, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
actual, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so you have to do such a high volume of those. And the hard part with that is you have to build out a full sales system because you can't pay a broker to sell a $15,000 piece of dirt.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. So you have to build that all in house. So you're either all committed to the cheap stuff or you're going to go with the more expensive stuff. And the hard part of the more expensive stuff is it takes a shitload more capital to fund all that. And
Yeah.
so you're really just kind of figuring that out, right? Where you're at and what your goals are as far as that's concerned.
Okay. So to break it down to the new guys that all they know right now is infill lots. Typically, so what you're doing,
What do you mean by infill lots? Like what
just these
explain the infill
small
lots in your
infill
opinion?
lots in, like, let's say Florida, that they're going to sell to somebody who's just going to build a home on it really quick,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
What is the difference in what you're doing?
Most of our stuff is going to be recreational usage,
Okay.
right? or residential usage that someone's going to build on, but they're all going to be usually out in the county that are going to be five, 2.5, 5, 10, 20s or 40-acre tracts,
Okay.
right? And so that's the real whenever you're selling an infill lot, you're usually selling that to a builder,
Yeah.
right? You're selling it to a mom and pop builder trying to find that deal in Charlotte or Houston or Dallas, you know what I mean, an old gentrified area that you can come in and fill that lot. The bad thing with that, as you know, there's only so many of those.
Yeah.
And you're competing against a lot of people. If
Oh
you
yeah.
open up the scope into recreational and residential lots, that's a whole nother ballgame. If anyone's listening to this, pull up Zillow, right? Pull up whatever state you want to. Do anywhere from 5 acres to 25, or do 5 to 50 acres, and look up anything from 100 or 75 to 150. No, let's do 75 to $200,000, right? Lots. You will see them absolutely everywhere. That is your market. That is your market.
Nice. That's a really good tip, man. That's a very, very good tip.
Yeah, man. And that's another thing too. I'm completely agnostic. I've sent text messages, I've sent letters, I've worked with brokers, I've done all of it. I don't care. I've done PPC. I don't care where the lead comes from, right? How we market it, how we do it one way or other. Most of our stuff now is usually cold calls or broker relationships, right? That's what we do for our value add stuff. But I mean, there's a million different ways of doing it. It really just depends on what you're trying to get done, right? Like
Sure.
I want to bring, and that's what I'm working on right now, and having conversations with these giant real estate funds where I'm trying to bring 9+ figures to the market to be able to force appreciation and then offer those owner financing.
Yeah.
So I kind of blend what we're doing. So by coming in and say we buy it for 10,000 bucks an acre, we subdivide it and that's worth 20,000 bucks an acre. But then I can sell it on owner financing. That increases the velocity that I can turn that deal, and I can actually usually charge an extra 10 to 15% on the overall price. So I'm actually going to charge 22 to 23,000 bucks an acre. Sell that on 10 to 15% down on a 10-year 10% interest rate on a 20-year amortization with a 10-year balloon on it. And what that does is that literally allows me to cut every single month whenever they sign over, not counting the down payment. I am making 22 to 25% of my money every single month.
Nice. Nice. So I know that your profits are going to vary, but do you guys have like an average profit you look for?
I don't touch anything if I can't double the value of it.
Okay.
That's just the game that we want to play for real subdivision. That's hard to do in a lot of places. Um, whenever you use leverage, right? Then you can, you double the value, then you're turning 170 to 200% rate of return, right? If you're using a bank and you're only having to come out at 20% out of pocket, then your cash on cash is through the roof. But as far as I don't want to truly touch anything if I can't double the value on it or get close to doubling the value on it. It kind of depends on your overall cost per acre, if that's realistic or not, and where you're at. But yes, I right now I'm focusing on nothing but the best of the best in the areas that I want to be in, right? Where everything wants to grow. The Triangle of Texas, anything east of I-35 right now is pretty interesting because of it's got good groundwater for the most part,
Yeah.
and that's the huge. You can build a road anywhere you want to. You can run power anywhere you want to, but if you don't have access to water, you won't ever. It's not a deal.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So when it comes to, finding these deals through cold calling or through some type of broker, who's doing that part of
Yep.
the business?
Either myself or I've got a group that is called Land Reach with Jordan Harmon that they do a bunch of the cold calling for me.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a great guy. Young guy out of Houston, gets after it, super smart kid. But yeah, they do a lot of the cold calling and filtering.
Cool. Cool. So, you get the lead, you get it under contract. So who is going out and checking on this land? Is it
Usually me.
okay?
I'll make the drive if it's 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours away. I don't buy anything as far as a subdivide and things like that. I don't buy anything that I don't go see.
Okay.
Right? Because you can look at all the maps in the world, but until you get on the damn place, especially in your neck of the woods where the topography is, you may be like this.
Yeah.
It's different where we're at, but there's certain things like you don't know what the actual, topography, what the drainage looks like, what all this stuff looks like. Plus, I drive 3, 5, 8 miles every direction around that because there may be a really, really crappy mobile home park on the backside of that I didn't see on Google Earth, right?
Yeah.
There may be whatever that is. I want to make sure that people want to live there and it's a good quality area to live.
Man, that's awesome that you do that. That's crazy too, driving, 4 or 5. A lot of people won't do that, is what I'm saying.
Well,
And
I mean, I'm the one that's got to buy the deal. I'm the one that's on the hook with the bank. I'm also, if I've got investors, I'm going to make damn sure I'm there, right? I
yeah,
walk it, I see it. That way, whenever they're like, "Hey, what do you think about this, this, and this?" I'm like, "Well, this is good. This is good. This one's not worth a shit, and this is why." Right?
yeah,
And so the good thing that my cheat code for me is I am my buyer, right? I live on
yep,
some acreage. You know what I'm saying? So I know what they're going to want, whether that's a hunting property, whether that's a homestead property, whatever that is. Like I know that, and so that's kind of my cheat code because I know what my buyer wants.
yeah, man. That makes sense. How much time are you spending per day on your business?
Sometimes none, and sometimes 14 hours. It just depends, right? That's the thing about it. This is a very on the value add side, right? Because almost everyone around you, whether that's a banker, a road guy, a water well guy, a surveyor, an engineer, a broker, all this other stuff, like they all are important for your team, and you can't do all of it anyway. And so, like, it's almost more like you're a general contractor,
Yeah,
right? Making sure everything is done the way it needs to be in the manner it needs to be and things like this and everyone gets paid and all this other stuff. That's you're more of a general contractor on those. And so when things go right, you don't sometimes it's not I mean, it's like I could do this as a part-time gig, right?
yeah,
Um, but whenever it's you're pulling teeth, you're trying to get stuff done, things like that, then it's all hands on deck.
yeah. Makes sense.
That's what
Uh,
that's what I like about it. Is it's not there's not a no 2 days are the same.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that's
yeah,
what I like about it. But again, I came from the sales background. I came from driving around and living in a pickup and doing all this other stuff. So like that's what I came from. So it's just kind of an extension of that. So there may be some days I'll leave the house at 4 o'clock in the morning and spending 2 days on the road, sleeping in hotels, doing everything like that. And then there'll be 4 days where I'm like, okay, we have all the market, we got everything out on market. I don't have anything that I'm really pressed on like this. Hey, me and the wife and kids, we're gonna go skiing this next 4 days, right? Like
yeah.
it just kind of depends on the day.
I understand that. I would assume that a lot of your time is just traveling. When you are out there, grinding, is just on the road.
On the phone, man. On the
Do you,
phone, right? Like on
do
the
you drive for
phone.
dollars? Like while you're driving?
I do not. I don't. Obviously, yeah, I'm not trying to. Obviously, if I see something that's for sale in those areas, usually I already know about it.
Yeah,
But sometimes, yeah, they'll be like, "Hey, for sale by owner," and you'll look at it and you'll be like, "Oh crap! Well, there's new competition or not," and then stop, pull over, make the call, things like that. But like, there's no such thing as dirt, especially the places that I'm looking at, like 150, 200 acres. They're going to drive by and be like, "Oh, well, there's no one's mowed the yard,
yeah,
right?"
yeah,
Or there's 3 cars in the driveway, right? Like that, two of them are on blocks. It's there's nothing like that, right? And so you can't visually see distress like you can, driving for dollars for houses.
sure. I get that. I tried to do that in my area, drive around and look for land, and then I found what you're saying to be true. So it makes total sense. I come from the house background, dude. So like, I was trained on houses and the whole sales process of houses, of your condition, your timeline, your motivation, the price. You know, what is the conversations like with these sellers, and what are you looking for? Because with houses, I'm looking for motivation.
There's no such thing as motivation in this business, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's really not. As far as the value add stuff, right?
Yeah.
As far as the subdivision, as far as all that, there's really not such thing as that, right? Like you can do that on like PPC. You'll have some people go reach you, call you, and be like, "Hey, click on your ads, be like, hey, I need to sell this thing tomorrow." But for the most part, like one of my favorite deals I ever did was in northern Arizona, outside of Kingman. It was a real nice property, and I accidentally sent letters that were way too low. I mean, it was a terrible, terrible mailer, right? And but this one gal, she sent me this deal, and it's a letter, and it's back, and it's $22,000. And I look at it, I'm like, okay. And then I look at it, and I'm like, ah, crap, this is all this stuff. Anyway, I'm sure there's something wrong with it. And you look at it, and you go on Google Earth. It's like it's got power, it's got road frontage, it's got water. It's like not that far from freaking Flagstaff, everything else. And and then I look up the records there, because Arizona's a disclosure state,
Yeah.
and they bought it in like 2006 for like $280,000. They signed a deal at $22,000, right? Like I'm like, holy crap! And they're in Chicago, and she was like, well, she's like, I'm just done with this. I'm tired of paying the HOA, which the HOA was like $150, right? It wasn't anything big deal. And the taxes and all this other stuff. We were supposed to move out there. The grandkids, the kids, no one ever left. Blah blah, whatever. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, got it to title there in Flagstaff. I was like, hey, I'll send earnest money, blah, blah. Got it closed within 3 weeks, and then sold that thing for like $87,000, like 2 weeks later. But the interesting thing about it is like she was like crying. She was so happy just to get the thing off of her freaking desk, right? Like they owned it free and clear. They paid way too much for it. They took a beating like in the shorts, right? But the whole market had done that.
Yeah.
They bought it at the top. And so I even sold it below, a little bit below, but still, even at with the high end of the market, was still half of or less of what they bought it for in 2006, right? And so it was just one of those deals where, yeah, but like my very first deal I ever did was in northern Arizona, outside of Sholo there, and the dude was a fall down drunk, and he had a trailer house that was about to burn down on one spot. It was the weirdest deal. He didn't have a house. I was paying some guy from Uber or from uh, Craigslist gigs back in the day to like go to his house and do all this stuff. The dude's like passed out drunk. He doesn't even have an ID. He can't sign any of this stuff,
Yeah.
and you're just like, but you made $40,000 basically trading some paper and filling out, like figuring out some stuff. And I was like, oh, this is way better than houses.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I was like, I didn't have to worry about anybody not showing up to the job today. I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. And so, I mean, usually that doesn't have the level of like urgency that homes or even commercial buildings have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could
it's
see
just
that.
being, I mean, it's just marketing, right? It's just having enough marketing out there, and that's what I like about the value add game is I don't have to beat someone down. I don't have to come in there and be like, oh, I'll offer you 30 cents on the dollar or 40 cents on the dollar or whatever that is. I don't have to do that. If I've got a good game plan, I can pay them full value and still make a ton of money.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. So for there's going to be a lot of people that watch this that have no, and even though you've kind of touched on it already, but they're still going to have no idea what value add even is. You know what I mean? Can you go a little bit deeper on that?
Yeah. So a value add is a way which, that is a almost a term for commercial real estate, right? So in a single family home, a value add in my opinion, would be to add square foot on to the house, right?
Right.
Or add a apartment in the back that you could rent out,
Yeah.
right? An ADU, something like that. That's what I consider a value add. In my neck of the woods, the value add is pretty easy because it's just raw land, right? So we either do subdivision, right? And so the easiest way to think about that is if I take, um, there's a 18 pack of waters right here, right? And it's going to cost me $4. But if I buy one of these deals, it's going to cost me $1, right? The smaller it is, the more expensive it is per unit. Usually, that's just the way economics work, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of having a full case of waters, now we cut all of those into right? And say I bought it for $4 and now I'm selling it for 18. The value of that as a case is $4, but as an individual water bottle, that's $18, right? That is the impetus of what we do, right? That's we buy by the case and sell it by the Coke, right? Same thing our family's always said, we buy it by the ranch and we sell it by the pasture, right? So we buy 1,000 acres and they all kind of are fenced. A pasture is just, an area that you kind of have fenced off that you graze animals on. That's exactly what we have done for a long time. Because it's already fenced off, it's easy to work with, things like that. We literally buy it by the ranch and sell it by the pasture, or buy it by the case and sell it by the Coke, right? That is the basics of that. Now you can go deeper into that if you want to move a mobile home house, or mobile home onto it, right?
Yep.
That's a great opportunity. If you want to come in and build a regular house onto it, right? Like there's or a barndominium. Like I don't know about your part of the world, but like us, the metal barn look
Yeah.
that's built out is a huge deal in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants a barndominium, all the farmhouse fancy stuff, things like that, right?
Yeah.
That is a value add. Another value add is changing zoning on something, right? Or to work on that. I don't do that, but that's a way. That's what I consider value add to any property, is a way to force appreciation on that particular property, right? That's what we do.
Man, that's, I don't think I've interviewed anyone that does land that does what you do, I really
It's a
like
real
the
pain in the ass sometimes, though, right?
what
Like
is it?
it's a real pain in the ass sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Like sometimes you got to deal with counties that don't want you to do this stuff. They want to keep everything big. They want to do everything else like that. However, they also need to realize, like, hey, no one can afford the big stuff anymore, especially in Texas. We have this huge appreciation, right? Last 5 years, no one can afford the big stuff, right? Only the richest of the rich can afford the big stuff. And whether they like it or not, time changes, everything changes, right? It's
Yeah.
just everybody, oh man, I remember when this was 1,000 acres. I was like, yeah, but 1955, it was 5,000 acres,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it just keeps getting smaller and smaller because of affordability. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
You mentioned mobile homes a little while ago. Have you done anything with mobile homes?
Man, I have talked to people. I've done all this other stuff. I've bought and sold mobile homes on dirt before, but that's when I was marketing more for the houses and stuff. I have not. That's something that we've talked to. I've got actually next week, I've got a call with a big guy with Clayton Homes out of Abilene out here. He's kind of the regional guy, and kind of seeing what kind of packages we can kind of put together.
Okay.
But I have not. Most of my stuff has all been just simple, build a road, run power, drill water wells. That's really all I've done.
Sure, I understand that. Up here, mobile homes are really big,
Oh, dude, I think they're great. I
Yeah.
absolutely think they're great. And like I said, if you get a newer one that's actually financeable, right? And people take care of them, like the affordability is key, right? Like you may never own your damn house if you got a $400,000 house, but you got a $250,000 double wide with 5 acres. You got a better chance of paying that some bitch off and being able to retire. You
Yeah,
know what I
man.
mean? That's that's what my whole goal is, right? I just want more people to be able to afford to live with room around them, right? So that's my past deal for the past year is to raise as much capital as possible, and now we're having conversations with true institutional folks about bringing real money to this market because no one has, as
Yeah.
far as I know, right? Like I had a conversation on Tuesday with a guy. He's out of Toronto, and they have a fund they've got $10 billion under management, right? And he was like, and they do most of their stuff is industrial and hotels all over the world. And he goes, we were talking about it. He's like, and it's funny. It was really cool because he had gone hunting in Texas, like in December. And so he was like, "Oh, Texas, I went hunting." And I was like, "It was so much fun, running around and doing all this other stuff." I was like, "Well, that's a great segue because that's what I'm trying to do is make sure that more people have more room to do exactly what you did." And it like
Yeah.
kind of caught him off guard. He was like, "Oh shit," you know what I mean? Like that's my goal is I want to bring institutional money to this space to be able to allow that owner financing or that affordability to thousands and thousands of people.
Love it, man. That's so it's definitely possible for you. You're out here.
Oh, it is. It's just
Yeah,
a kick in the dick.
yeah, dude.
I didn't go to Harvard, right? I didn't go work at Wall Street for 15 years. I don't have those contacts, right? And so I'm having to make contacts, literally force my way into places and hoping that it works, right? And so it's also interesting, like even these giant funds, they're not greedy, but you're like, man, if y'all got $10 billion under management, you think that they would all um, they'd be pretty patient, but they're not
Yeah,
because they're only paid on performance, right?
yeah,
And it's a weird dynamic, man. And that when you start talking to people that are employees and managers of family offices and in charge of billions of dollars in capital, a lot of them are still just fucking employees that are just there to make sure they don't get their ass fired.
yeah.
And trying to actually get a hold of the actual people, I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. That's what this year's for, is right? Is to raise 100 million plus and to turn that into basically the proving grounds. And even if I've got to, suck on a hind tit for a while, and not make as much money as I could by myself, I know that taking two steps forwards will move me a lot further down the line as far as where I want to be, right? And there's, I've got friends that are like, "You're an idiot. Why would you want to do that?" Right? Like, why in God's name would you want to do that? And I'm like, because I want to go to into the grave knowing that I could help somebody in West Virginia or Kansas or Texas or wherever that is be able to afford that piece of dirt that they can hopefully retire on, have their kids play on there and raise some chickens versus living in a freaking apartment somewhere.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, dude. This has been such a great conversation, dude. Like, no, literally, like, because I appreciate everybody I've interviewed, and I've had great conversations with people, definitely with land, but a lot of it is just the basic. Oh, send out your land offer letters. It's just the basic stuff. And in this interview, I mean, we've went through a lot of stuff that you're not going to hear elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's a continuum, right?
Yeah.
You can go as far as you want to, right? And now I've got, we're working with DR Horton on a deal outside of Houston, right? And that's a whole nother ballgame. So now we would have to go through the entitlement process, right? Anyway, and that's a year at least. And then they want us to build the roads, and so that's a $3 million buy. That's a $5.5 million improvement. But they would be, if we get them to agree, and they're doing their feasibility stuff right now over a 5 year period. They would take those lots down at a certain price that was already contracted. That's a $42 million buyout over 5 years, right? On an $8 million investment. I mean, there's worse things, you know, like there's worse things. So it just depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. I don't want to build houses. I don't want to, I would actually love to own commercial stuff that we do entitlements on that we could, ideally, I would love to, like, say we got 15 acres of industrial space
Mhm.
off of the interstate in San Antonio, right? On the path of progress. It's raw land, it's acreage right now. We spend $500,000 getting all the entitlements, everything else like that. Now it's worth, say it was worth 10 million, now it's worth 40 million, right? But I've got, whether that's owner financing, whether that, one way or other that is, if I could sell the vast majority of that and still keep part of it and keep that instead of getting paid, that way I never get that tax bill and I can turn that into A class commercial buildings that I can own forever. That's for me, right? And then that's way, if I die in 5 years because of all the stress and the headaches and everything, even though I'm 42 now, like if I die in 5 years, the wife is taken care of, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take very many of those when you've got no debt on them that you're good.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate your time today. You are a very advanced land investor compared to most, right? So
Yeah.
My
and
question.
not advanced at all compared to others, right?
Right, right. And like you said, there's just so many ways you could go about this. So my question for you before we hop off here is, where would you recommend somebody start? I mean, I know you just got to start, but what would you recommend?
It really depends on what you have, right? I still think the best opportunity is to, whether that's with any of these courses. I still think if you've never done a land deal or a real estate deal, you find something that you can buy 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar, or you find something, Travis, you something in West Virginia that's 10 acres that's got a bunch of road frontage that you could come in with a new plat and make it worth three times as much, and now they're 1 acre lots,
Yeah.
right? Like that right there, and that's what we'll talk on that. Like I said, if you need to, you come across a bunch of these deals, that's something that you need to really start paying attention to,
Yeah.
because that's one of those things that you can pay market value. I'll be like, you want 100 grand? I'll absolutely pay you 100 grand, because with another 10 grand at a survey and some interests, I can make it worth 300 grand.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
those, that's the kind of opportunity that you can feather in. But if you're brand new, if you're just starting, Brent's got a bunch of, like, there's so many of these guys that have, and gals that have all these programs and things like this. I think Clint's got a free course on YouTube, right? Things Turner, but like, I think find a good deal. Well, like I said, like we talked about, go to Zillow, go to areas that you already know and you like anywhere in the country. If you like to vacation there, if you like to go into the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, and you love that, even though you live in Chicago, I would go into those areas and I would find stuff that's worth 50 to 150,000 bucks, right? I would find, go to Price, PRYCD, yeah, PRYCD.com, go through all their stuff, get a hold of those guys. They will price literally your mailers however you wanted to. And I would send as many mailers into areas that I liked at whatever price that you think that you needed to, right? And buy one on the whatever money you got, and then sell it on owner financing, just to get it done, just to fucking see it and get it into your brain. Like, holy shit, this works. It's not a bunch of bullshit. It's not a bunch of stuff that I've seen on the internet. This actually works, right?
Yeah.
And when you spend that first 2 grand on letters, you're just like, this is stupid. No one's gonna ever sign this stuff, right? And then you get yelled at, you get a phone call back, and you get told, eat shit and die on a letter. You're like all the stuff, and then someone signs a deal and says, "Yes, I would love to sell this thing to you." Right? Once that happens, and once you get that money, and whether it takes you, then you have a contract, and then you're going to put that into the title company, right? You're going to do your earnest money, 1, 2%, whatever that is. Even if you don't have any money, talk to your brother, your cousin, your uncle, your uncle's boss, your dad's third cousin, whatever that is, and say, "Listen, these are the comps. Here it is. You see it on Zillow. This is where it is. Will you loan me this money, and I'll give you 10% on your money until this thing sells?" Right? Or I'll sell it to you for a $5,000 or $10,000 assignment, and I will help sell it to you on owner financing. And these are the numbers that you're going to make. You're going to turn this 25,000 bucks into 750 bucks a month, right, for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Just do it once. Just fucking do it once, right? Whenever you get that, it's just a belief in yourself, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I would be so much further along if I believed in myself more in my earlier years, right? I don't know, I always thought I was too smart, I guess. But like, it was just one of those deals where I always wanted to do the big commercial deals. I want to do all this other stuff, but I realized, like, no one makes money on those. People just build wealth on those, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, you got to have the active side to build the nest egg in order to buy those big fancy assets, right?
Sure.
Whether that's wholesaling oil and gas, whatever that is, right? Selling hair product, whatever the fuck it is, right? That's what they use for that. So if you can do this and understand the process one time, then it's in your head and in your heart, and you're ready to go. Then it's up to you if you want to do all this other stuff. But I really, really suggest you take at least 6 months and say, I'm going to do nothing but this. And
Yeah.
it's even better if you can just say, hey, especially, because it's only February of 2025. For the rest of this year, I'm going to do nothing but this. Even if I have to write all the letters, lick stamps, do it all myself.
Yeah.
Once you do it once, you can do it as many times as you got the guts to do it.
Love it, man. That's such good advice. I hope everybody who listens that, because I think most of the people, including myself, that's in this business or in any business, at first they do lack that confidence, right? So I think what you're saying is very important. If you're listening to this and something's touching you and something's telling you inside that you need to do it, start today. Start today, go to Zillow, just like Trevor said, and get going. Trevor, if anybody watching this has any questions and they need your help with anything, is that something that you offer? Could you help people out?
Yeah, I started a school, SKOOL group, whatever it's called, the Dirt Road to Wealth. That's for my podcast. And that's another thing, like you can check out my podcast, The Dirt Road to Wealth. And I've got a couple hundred deals there, and some of them are just me rambling, but some of them are pretty good. Like I said, just check out any of that stuff. It's going to have tons and tons of information, or reach out one way or other. But yeah, I've kind of turned away from like doing a whole lot of the coaching stuff and things like that because I really just want to build the damn business,
Yeah.
right? Like you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean anything I can do to help on that, like I said, check out that. Or if you need to, cell phone number is 940-736-8797. But like hopefully have an idea. Don't just call me and say, "Hey, I'd like to learn land," right? Like there's a million different deals on YouTube. If you really want to get serious about it, things like that, then reach out to me.
Awesome. I appreciate your time here today, man.
Yeah,
Is
brother.
there anything else you can leave these good people with? It could be life, it could be business, just one final thing.
Yes, just win the day, and that's something that it takes me a long time to figure out. Don't worry about tomorrow, next week, last week, whatever. Like the shit that you'll get behind if you don't just get what's done need to be done today. It will eat you alive.